What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Shadowlands video. We got the second in the Priest series here. I can't even talk. I hope you're all doing very well. I hope you have your coffee. We're going to jump into the Priest talent tree. The last video I did was on Holy Priest. Went a little longer than I thought it was going to go. I actually genuinely thought I was going to get all three trees into one video, and that was a really stupid idea. So we're going to do, we're just going to do one video for each spec because it really does matter. There's just so many choices that we have to talk about. So if you missed the Holy Priest tree, that was in the previous video. We're going to do Shadow now, and I'll save Disc for last. Let's jump right into it. I am going to make some notes on the Priest tree itself. I do a really big deep dive on the Priest tree in the previous video for the Holy Priest. So take a look at that if you want to. But I am going to make some notes here for Shadow. So one interesting note to make at the very beginning is this. This was this is in the whole mock-up that Blizzard did for this. I just kind of screenshotted it. So let's take a look at this. This is important to understand. Speaking of specialization, we wanted to make an important call out for Shadow Priest. Dark Thoughts has been removed from the Shadow Priest toolkit. The reasoning is Dark Thoughts placed a large emphasis on Mind Flay, and we made it feel mandatory to keep it always channeled to roll for a proc. That said, we'd like to make sure that Shadow retains some of its variety and surprise, and we're trying a new approach which is called Vampiric Insight. See below. We will get to that in a minute. What exactly was Dark Thoughts? If you don't know, if you haven't really played Priest, it was a really cool passive that said, for each of your shadow damage over time effects on the target, your Mind Flay and Mind Sear had a 3% chance to trigger a Dark Thought. Dark Thought increases the number of charges on Mind Blast by 1, and Mind Blast can be cast instantly and can be cast while channeling Mind Flay and Mind Sear. It was actually a really, really cool playstyle, and I'm sad they're getting rid of it. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. So, however, they're not entirely getting rid of it, and once we get to the Shadow Priest talent tree, I'll show you that when we get there. I'll take a look at that really quickly right now, and then we'll get into the other stuff. So let me get webcam up here again. So let's go to the Shadow Priest tree. What did they replace Dark Thoughts with? Well, they replaced it with Vampiric Insight. So Vampiric Touch periodic damage has a chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Mind Blast, cause your next Mind Blast to be instant. So this is really interesting because this puts a lot of emphasis on Vampiric Touch, and I think will genuinely push certain talents like Misery into the forefront. Right now, Shadow Priest AoE is largely made up of Searing Nightmare gameplay. You're basically just channeling Searing Nightmare. Or once you're channeling and you get enough insanity, then you pop Searing Nightmare on everybody. I think that this change into Vampiric Insight will push Shadow Priest towards a Misery, Unfurling Darkness, Damnation playstyle, and I'll get to that later. Okay. What are some implications on the class tree for Shadow Priest? First of all, as I said in the Holy Priest video, Power Infusion plus Twins of the Sun Priestess is insane value, and I think will really bump up the priority on bringing priests into raid, and subsequently will bump up the priority on bringing maybe a Shadow Priest into raid. How many Shadow Priests have you seen in a raid? Like, not very many, right? I mean, maybe at this point in the expansion, there's some Shadow Priests, but I think that this legendary effect for Power Infusion will bring up the priority on all priests, including maybe a Shadow Priest, because if you can give somebody else Power Infusion and also get it yourself as a DPS, like Shadow Priest player, that's incredible value. That's 2 Power Infusions on DPS players instead of 1. I think this is a tremendous, tremendous talent that will be basically mandatory for all priests. I know some people hate the degeneracy of people asking you for Power Infusion all the time, but this is going to make Shadow Priest, I think, really, really powerful in the DragonFlight meta whenever we get there. So that's number 1. Number 2, there's a bunch of buffs to Mind Blast, which again, I think pushes you towards a Mind Blast, Misery, Vampiric Touch kind of build, like Psychic Link build, where Mind Blast prevents a small amount of damage dealt by the enemy. You don't even have to take that one. Instead, you can just take Improved Mind Blast, 7.5 seconds. on the cooldown of Mind Blast. I don't even know if they tell you what the cooldown of Mind Blast is. It's down here. They don't actually tell you. Let me look at my character here. Mind Blast right now is a 6-second cooldown for me because I have a bunch of haste. So I don't know what the base value for Mind Blast, like the base, I actually have no idea. I need somebody to let me know that. But this seems completely busted for Shadow Priest. 7.5 seconds? That's insane. Also, we're getting Twist of Fate, which again was never taken on Shadow Priest because it competes with Misery and it competes with Searing Nightmare. So like that's your big AoE button, and Misery, as I've talked about before. Twist of Fate was never taken in the current meta in Shadowlands because of that. So this is interesting. Now, this Twist of Fate icon says after healing a target below 35% health, you deal more damage and more healing. Now, we'll have to see. The current iteration of Twist of Fate for Shadow Priest in Shadowlands says after damaging a target below 35% health, you deal 10% more damage. I don't know if this is gonna, if the tooltip will change here based on you being a Shadow Priest. I mean, this is very early days. This is likely to change. But if this stays the way it is right now, then unfortunately, it's not going to be super great because you'd have to like take Renew probably and then like hit somebody with a Renew, one of your allies, when they get low, and then you can trigger the Twist of Fate effect. So I hope that's not the way it is, but we'll have to wait and see. Some defensive options in Masochism. I mentioned this in the Holy Priest video. This is completely insane. It gives you 10% DR and heals you over time. This is very, very strong for the Shadowmen. Like my Shadowmen right now on my Shadow Priest heals me for 7,500 health, but then I take 3,700 damage. Okay, over time. This talent now says instead you're going to get healed for 3,700 damage. So now my Shadowman heal is like an 11k heal, and it gives me 10% DR. Insane, insane. You never took Masochism, generally speaking, as I guess it would be a Disc Priest. This is like a Disc Priest thing. You would not normally take this because the competition. There were too many other talents that were really good. I'll get to that in the Disc Priest video. Now, what else are you getting? Shadow Fiend, Improved Shadow Fiend, Mindbender, and the Mindbender Legendary for free. For free, as well as Mind Games for free, which is absolutely insane. Like, this row right here, getting this for free is really, really crazy. Because it lets you do so many other things with your Spec tree. So that's completely broken for Shadow Priest. I mean, you want Mindbender baseline. That's what you took right now in Shadowlands. And so this opens up that talent row for things like Void Torrent and Damnation. You can get all three of them if you want to. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to get to all the talents that you can pick all three of that you can't get right now in Shadowlands. I'll do that a little bit later. Those are the main things I want to highlight, though, for Shadow Priest, is that you're getting an insane buff to Mind Blast. Your cooldown's crazy. Shadow Word Death gets its cooldown reduced as well. Right now, my Shadow Word Death is a 16-second cooldown. That's with haste. So maybe it's like a 20-second cooldown base, and you can get it down to a 10-second cooldown. That seems really crazy, especially with the Shadow Flame Prism part, where this legendary effect for your Mindbender, where your Mind Blast and Shadow Word Death cause your Shadow Fiend to teleport behind the target and slash them. So, like, you can get more Shadow Word Deaths off and more Mind Blasts off because the cooldown is so freaking low. And then you could combine that with Monomania, which gives you an additional charge of Mind Blast. This whole kind of kit, obviously, you're going to take damage from Shadow Word Death, but then again, you can have Masochism. So, like, you start off a pull, you summon your Mindbender, you press Shadow Word Death into Mind Blast, into a couple other things, try to get a Mind Blast charge back. Then you get your Shadow Word Death comes off cooldown, you press it again, and then you just Shadow Mend yourself like once, or Shadow Mend yourself right before you start doing all this rotational stuff, and you basically will take 0 damage from the Shadow Word Death that you're casting because you're trying to proc Shadow Flame Prism a lot. So very, very good synergies here. Very, very good synergies. That's what we're seeing just from the base Priest kit here. On top of that, you have all the utility that you would ever want. You got your Master Spell, your Leap of Faith. You could take Mind Control if you need it in a dungeon to grab a particular enemy. You really don't care to go to the left-hand side here as a Shadow Priest. There's actually nothing for you over here. However, One thing that I am absolutely loving about all the priest trees is the hybridity of it all. The hybrid class fantasy is really coming back in a big way. I think classes like priest and shaman and probably paladin, they're going to have like strong hybrid abilities going on here where you can bring a shadow priest into your Mythic Plus dungeon and he's going to do lots of damage, but he'll also be able to do things like heal with maybe you take palm. Right now on my class tree, I have 3 points that I haven't spent right now. I have 3 points that I could put stuff into. So I could grab a movement speed ability if I want. I could grab extra healing with palm. Remember, palm is instant. You could just cast palm in between packs and you could have a palm jumping around healing people, which is kind of interesting. You could also take the palm thing that buffs it. That's probably useless. You could get some smite buffs in case you want to be casting smite as a shadow priest. Probably not, but you could grab all the extra utility that you want. Leap of faith, mind control, right? Whatever you want to do. Oh, I have 2 points, not 3. That's my bad. You could grab power word shield stuff because you get power word shield baseline. So you could scrap this and go 2 points into power word shield, and then in between packs you could be power word shielding people with your mana pool, because your mana pool is not used for anything else as a shadow priest. So you could just power word shield, power word shield, power word shield, and you're getting the same amount on yourself, or you're getting 10% of that amount on yourself. You could get Shackle the Undead for something like an Anduin fight, if you guys have done that fight. There's just like a bunch of really cool utility that you can get. You don't even have to take this Mind Blast one here, although in order to get to Power Infusion, you kind of have to. So this is like just a straight damage reduction. The way that this talent reads is strange. It looks like it just makes the enemy do less damage to anybody. So this is like additional damage reduction that you're giving to your entire team, I think. Obviously, I forgot to take this Improved Shadow Word Death, so I would definitely want to take that. But you could take Improved Shadow Word Death and like Palm or something, and then in between packs, you could Palm people. I think that that's really cool, that option exists. And I'm saying that the hybridity of something like Priest will be amazing to see in Mythic Plus in particular. I can't wait to like try this stuff out in dungeons and to get a feel for maybe you just bring a tank and a straight DPS, like a really hardcore DPS, like a rogue or something, and then you bring like a shaman and 2 shadow priests, and they can just literally take care of all the healing. One of your shadow priests could literally just build all of the healing stuff over here on this side and get a bunch of like renews and prayer of mendings, and I don't know, this sounds really stupid, but do you see what I'm saying? Bring a disc priest and a shadow priest into a dungeon and they will like pump damage, but also be able to keep your entire team alive because of the way that their kits have this hybrid nature to them. So I'm so excited for that. It's one of my things that I'm most excited for. Let's get to the spec tree before I lose my voice. One thing, as I wanted to say before, let's count really quickly how many talents you can get that are all in the same row in the current game that you don't have access to that you can get in DragonFlight. Okay, let's count that. So the first talent row for Shadow Priest has Fortress of the Mind, Death and Madness, Unfurling Darkness. Okay, Fortress of the Mind is right here, so that's 1. Death and Madness is right there, that's 2. Unfurling Darkness is here. You can get all 3 of those in the talent tree. Okay, there we go. Then we have Body and Soul, Sandland, and Intangibility. Intangibility is here. Sandland's here. Body and Soul, I think, is over here. So you could get all 3 of those as well, if you wanted to. It's kind of unlikely, but just bear with me here. The next row, Twist of Fate, Misery, Searing Nightmare. Okay, we've got Twist of Fate over here. You've already got that for free. Then you have to choose between Misery and Searing Nightmare. So you get 2 out of the 3 possibilities there. Okay? Last Words, Mind Bomb, and Psychic Horror. We have Last Words here, Psychic Horror here, and Mind Bomb is a choice between that and Psychic Voice. So you can have all 3 of those talents as well. Auspicious Spirits, Psychic Link, Shadow Crash. We have Auspicious Spirits here, Psychic Link is here, Shadow Crash is there. You can get all 3 of these if you want to. Okay? Damnation, Mindbender, Void Bolt, or Void Torrent. We have Mindbender over here, we have Damnation right here, and we have Void Torrent here. You can get all 3 of those as well. Final talent row in Shadowlands. Ancient Madness, Hungering Void, Surrender to Madness. This is it right here. You have to choose between Hungering Void and Surrender to Madness, and then you can get Ancient Madness for free. There's only 2. So out of the... Right now in Shadowlands, you can only have 7 talent choices. In DragonFlight, for Shadow Priest, you can have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19. You can have 19 choices. Isn't that insane? 19 versus 7. That's just the talents I'm talking about. I understand that DragonFlight is getting rid of some of our base abilities, but we're getting them all back right here, right? Your ability to choose which base abilities you want is infinitely better than just having a bunch of base abilities already that some of them you don't even use, and then only getting 7 talent choices. You can have all the base abilities and only get 7 talent choices, or you can have no base abilities and get 61 talents to choose from, and then have 19 options for talents instead of 7, based on like the current talent tree that exists in Shadowlands. 19 versus 7, guys. It's not even close. It's so much better to have all these choices. Like, I can't even, it's just crazy. So, let's talk about the spec tree really quickly. Okay, you've got Mind Flay, of course, Devouring Plague, Vampiric Touch, and Mind Seer. You're going to want to take those. Again, you get to choose here between Mind Bomb. This is your CC. There's a bunch of utility over here. There is a Death and Madness talent over here that you can take if you're doing like a Shadow or Death build. And maybe this is what you would want to do with the Shadow Flame Prism combo, right? Because you want to press Shadow or Death as much as humanly possible to get this guy to trigger his slash more often. So that's an interesting choice there. Over here you have Vampiric Embrace. You have Hallucinations. You've got Sanlayan. Yeah. Again, Shadow actually has a ton of defensive possibilities here. You have Silence. You have the Last Word, which buffs Silence. That's your kick, right? So you do get a kick as a Shadow Priest. You just have to spec into it like everybody does. Then you have Dispersion, Psychic Horror, Intangibility. Look at all the CC you could bring as a Shadow Priest. You could get Mind Bomb for an AoE stun, okay? AoE Disorient, okay? You have an AoE Disorient. You have a single target Silence that now has its cooldown reduced. On top of that, you also have... Actually, I think this replaces Psychic Scream, right? I'm assuming it replaces Psychic Scream. Oh, whoops. I don't know why I just clicked on there. So you have Mind Bomb, which is an AoE stun. You don't have Psychic Scream anymore. You have a single target Silence on a lower cooldown, and you have a single target stun with Psychic Horror. You can get all 3 of these in Dragonflight. You can't get all 3 of them in Shadowlands. The amount of crowd control that could come out of a Shadow Priest is insane. It's bonkers. Imagine this in a Mythic Plus. This, again, raises the bar on the value of a Shadow Priest in a Mythic Plus dungeon. You're going to want a Shadow Priest in there. He's going to give you double power infusion over here. He's going to give you a single target stun. He has a kick in an AoE silence, and he has an AoE interrupt, in AoE in cap. That's so much utility and value that you can bring to the Mythic Plus environment. So really insane crowd controls. I haven't, and then if you want to, as you see in my current tree, you can choose to take none of those, which is kind of ridiculous, but you can. And instead, you can go for the new mechanic, which is Vampiric Insight, again, which is all about Vampiric Touch. Unfurling Darkness, I think, would be really good. After you cast Vampiric Touch, you can cast another one. Then you could take Damnation, which does another Vampiric Touch. Okay? So, basically, what you could do is you could go and take Misery, which is going to add Shadow Pain. So you go Vampiric Touch into another instant Vampiric Touch into another Damnation, which is a third Vampiric Touch, and then you just cast a 4th Vampiric Touch just for fun. Now you have 4 Vampiric Touches out. They all have a chance to reset the remaining cooldown on your Mind Blast, cause your next Mind Blast to be instant. You have a second charge of Mind Blast right here because of Monomania, which also says while you're channeling Mind Flay or Mind Seer, the periodic rate of your Vampiric Touch and Shadow Pain is increased by 100%. This is bananas with this build, guys. Vampiric Touch, Unfurling Darkness Vampiric Touch, Damnation, 4th Vampiric Touch. You have 4 Vampiric Touches out. You start channeling Mind Seer. Then you're going to get your Mind Blast is going to be ticking because of Vampiric Insight. But as you're channeling Mind Seer, your Vampiric Touches and your Shadow Word Pains that are on there because of Misery are all doing double damage. Double damage. Then you can have Psychic Link, which says your Mind Blast, obviously, it does damage to all other targets affected by Vampiric Touch within 40 yards. Again, this is kind of the build, I think, that's shaping up for Shadow Priest. I think it's going to be the premier build when you go in there. But if you go to the left side of the tree here, you can get Shadowy Apparitions. You can get your Auspicious Spirits. You can get down here for Shadow Crash. And then there's some interesting utility down here near the bottom. Let's talk about this really quickly. Healing from Vampiric Touch when you're at maximum health will shield you for the same amount. Again, more defensive options for Shadow Priests, making them incredibly strong, much, much stronger than they are probably in the current meta of things. Like, Priests are traditionally seen as being, like, really weak, and, like, this is another thing. You're going to get a talent, or you're going to get a shield from this, which is insane if you want to go down that route. Again, your Vampiric Touch, as I'm just describing, you can get 4 of them out, like, very, very quickly and very easily. While you're shielded, your Vampiric Touch, Devouring Plague deal 15% more damage. That's a 3-reg talent. That's a lot to invest into that. But again, if you're playing this particular build, you could just scrap all this stuff over here. Let's just scrap all this really quickly. Let's get rid of this. Let's go down here. Boom, 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 boom. And then we need one more. Let's just get rid of the Vampiric stuff, or the stuff altogether. You could do this. Okay. Yeah. Vampiric Touch Critical Strikes. Again, you could do an entire Vampiric Touch build, which I'm not doing very well right now. We could actually just get rid of this side. We don't need Mind Blast stuff. What? 2, 4, 6, 8. I have 8 down here. 29. I could get rid of this, right? I could get rid of Void Torrent if I wanted to. Okay. Then you can see here. We'll do this final row, which is really good. We have one more point to put in somewhere. You could just put it in. I don't know where you want to put it, but maybe do your Shadowy Apparitions one. So this is kind of like a Shadowy Apparitions Vampiric Touch build, right? So again, my Vampiric Touch, as I've said, it's going to apply Shadow Word Pain. We have an instant one with Unfurled Darkness. You get Damnation for a 3rd one. You can cast a 4th one by yourself. All your healing from Vampiric Touch creates a shield on you. Your Vampiric Touch Critical Strikes create a Shadowy Apparition. Then your damage dealt by Shadow Word Pain or Vampiric Touch or Devouring Plague has a 20% chance to apply Echoing Void. Each time the Echoing Void is applied, it has a chance to collapse, dealing shadow damage to all nearby enemies. So this is turning your Vampiric Touch Misery things into AoE damage, so you don't have to go for Searing Nightmare, right? It's another way to do AoE damage. And then while you're shielded, which is what this is doing, you don't have to even press Power Word Shield. You just take this talent, and then this makes you do more damage while you're shielded. Your Vampiric Touch and Devouring Plague do more. So again, just a really cool synergy here with a build that is just really well put together. I think the shadow tree is incredibly well put together. You could scrap all that, of course, and go down this way, and instead get things like Void Torrent for a big ability. Your Mind Blast. This is like the Mind Blast side of the tree. Has a chance to deal more damage. Make your next Devouring Plague cost no insanity. A Monomania, which is this thing here, increases the critical strike chance of Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch as well. And then this final one here, Mind Flay and Mind Seer have a chance to spawn a Void Tendril. We know about that. After conjuring 50 Shadowy Apparitions, you summon a Thing from Beyond that serves you for 20 seconds. The Thing from Beyond blasts enemies for shadow damage. Vampiric Insight has a greater chance to occur. Really, really cool stuff here with the Shadow tree. I think it's very, very strong. One thing that people didn't understand is this idol of Yashiraj. Shadow Fiend causes you to gain a benefit based on your target's current emotional state. People didn't really understand what that meant. Over here, Blizzard has clarified what that means. So basically, it's kind of like IQD, right? So if your target is like at 80% health, you get Pride. If they're enraged, you get Anger. If they're stunned, you get Despair. There's some interesting effects here. So you can purge an Enrage effect if the enemy is enraged. So your Shadow Fiend will just purge that enemy that's enraged. That's very, very cool. You generate more Insanity. You and your Shadow Fiend deal increased damage and do not break fear effects. So you're immune to fear. Duration of Shadow Fiend is increased. And then Shadow Fiend deal increased damage. So it's just lots of damage stuff, but increase your haste. And this one seems like one of the best ones ever. Like if you have an enraged guy, you're going to purge it automatically and then increase your haste. So more utility for Shadow Priest, which I think, again, ups the priority on whether or not you're going to want to bring a Shadow Priest into your raid or into your Mythic Plus is what I'm thinking. So let me just do a little recap here. Let me look at my my notes really quick. So one thing that I think is absolutely really incredible about the Shadow Priest tree is the hybridity of it. There's lots of hybrid stuff going on here. You can take healing stuff if maybe you want to, if you want to help your group out in that way. It might sound really stupid and ridiculous, but throwing a palm on somebody on cooldown in a dungeon would be really, really good over time. The healing on that would be actually incredible over time. Power Infusion is here, and this legendary effect is completely busted. You're going to want it in your raid group. In particular, I think this increases the priority on Shadow Priests in raid. That's really, really good because you get double Power Infusion now. You get all the Shadow Fiend stuff on your class side for free, which opens up a really cool Shadow Word Death build and a Mind Blast build. This is a massive buff to Mind Blast here. 7.5 second reduced cooldown on Mind Blast. Reduce cooldown on Shadow Word Death. You can get Death and Madness over here. You could have a big Mindbender Shadow Word Death build. We're getting Mind Games for free, which I think is actually very strong. You get Twist of Fate for free. Hopefully this changes in terms of the way that it's worded here, but that's a talent that you wouldn't normally take for Shadow Priest, but you're getting it for free over here. And on the spec side, I think there's very, very good builds going on here. You can go with a Mind Blast build down here, or a channeling build with like Fortress of the Mind and Void Torrent and over here, while Shadow Word Pain, Divine Plague on the same target, your Mind Blast deals more. This is, again, more Mind Blast stuff. Or you could do a Vampiric Touch build over this way, which sends out a lot of Shadowy Apparitions. You can easily get out a whole bunch of Vampiric Touches very, very quickly. Those Vampiric Touches give you a shield. You do more damage while you're shielded. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do here, guys, for the Shadow Tree. The utility on the Shadow Tree is insane. We've got a single target silence that has a low cooldown, a single target stun, and you have an AoE interrupt, AoE incap right there. On top of that, you could get even more healing with Vampiric Embrace. You could get a more damage reduction with Dispersion. That increases the value of a Shadow Priest in Mythic Plus, I think, in a huge way. So I think Shadow Priest is looking very, very strong in Dragonflight. I don't think you can take a look at these talents and think that Shadow Priest is not going to be picked in both Mythic Plus and Raid. Big Raid cooldowns, big Mythic Plus utility cooldowns if they want, big damage. There's so much going on here for Shadow Priest, and it's just really incredible. So if you guys haven't played Shadow Priest, I think you should pick one up now and get it ready for Dragonflight because it's going to be very strong. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you think about the state of the Shadow Priest tree? What's good about it? What do you think is bad about it? Let me know in those comments. Let's get a discussion going about that here. If you like what you see here on the channel, drop a like on the video. Drop a subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel already. If you want to support the future of what I'm doing here on the channel, Patreon is, of course, the best way to do that. And you can find the link down below. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.